VCY America presents Crosstalk, a nationwide call-in program discussing issues that have an effect on our families, our communities, our churches, our nation, and our world. Crosstalk, an opportunity for you to voice your concerns for biblical principles. And now live by satellite and around the world on the internet at vcyamerica.org. Here is today's Crosstalk.
And thank you. Good afternoon. Good to have you with us on Crosstalk today. And many of you have been hearing about the appointments of new people in key places in the new government. And, of course, you hear people talking about Secretary of State, and you're hearing people taking various tasks that are at least hopefully being confirmed for those tasks. But one of the tasks that's really caused some concern across our country is the task that is defined as the Secretary of Defense. Now, many years ago, I met the Secretary of the Navy, and it was a privilege to meet him, realizing his responsibility. But there's a man who is in charge of the total defense of our nation, and that is the Secretary of Defense. And the Senate will soon be voting on Chuck Hagel. We're going to be talking about this today, and our special guest is no stranger to Crosstalk. She is the president and founder of Eagle Forum. She has been a leader of the conservative movement for over 4 decades. She's the author and editor of some 20 books, including No Higher Power, Obama's War on Religious Freedom. And with that, we say a very special welcome to Phyllis Schlafly. Phyllis.
Well, thank you very much, Vic. I appreciate that. And I would point out that 5 of my books are on the subject of national defense. And they've stood the test of time. They were, I think, helpful in enabling Ronald Reagan to win the Cold War without firing a shot, as Margaret Thatcher said. And now we have a lot of evil people in the country who don't like us. And it's necessary, just as necessary as ever before, for America to maintain our military superiority.
You know, Phyllis, some of the people that have been brought to Washington, some from Chicago, some from other places, have backgrounds that are highly questionable, if not shady, under certain circumstances. And when you start looking at the credentials of those who have been involved with Chicago politics or other things, you begin to ask, well, what do these people really believe, and who are these people in reality? Because having a title thrown at them on the national picture is very, very sometimes misleading. And whether if they're the Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense, or the czars that were put in place, they all have some connections, and we'd like to find out what's their foundation of beliefs. Not just who they are, but what in the world do they believe?
Well, that's a very good question, and maybe the most important job after president is Secretary of Defense. And Obama has some very, I think, kooky, peculiar ideas about national defense, and he is trying to get a man who was elected as a Republican, Chuck Hagel, to kind of front for these very bad ideas. And you know the old bumper strip that we used to see every now and then about the matter of guns. If guns are outlawed, only outlaws will have guns.
That's right.
Well, the same thing's true. If nukes are outlawed, only terrorist countries will have nukes. Mm-hmm. And we live in a world where there are evil people who don't like us or are jealous of us, and they are trying to build nuclear weapons. And meanwhile, Obama and his new appointee, Chuck Hagel, for Secretary of Defense, say they want a nuclear-free world. Well, it doesn't make sense. If we get rid of our nuclear weapons, the bad guys are still going to build theirs.
Phyllis, I know you're with us just for a half hour, but I've got about 8 or 10 bullet points I'd like to toss at you and give us a little message on each of them.
Okay.
Hagel would be our first anti-military Secretary of Defense.
Yes, I think that's a fair statement. I've found that he belongs to a couple of organizations that want us to get rid of our nuclear defense. And one of them is called the Global Zero U.S. Nuclear Policy Commission. Mm-hmm. In fact, he's a board member, and they want us to get rid of our nuclear weapons. And another one is called Plowshares Fund, and they also want us to get rid of nuclear weapons. So to have a Secretary of Defense who's against nuclear defense is nuts.
Absolutely. Now, item number 2, he has consistently declared that he believes in a pared-down Pentagon.
Yes, he does, and like any big organization, there's probably a lot of waste there and things that could be cut. But the big thing is the weapons. Do we have them? And it's been a long time that the Republican Party platform has had in it that we need military superiority. It's not enough just to have a bunch of weapons sitting around. We have to be bigger and better than anybody else, and that is the best key to peace and the best key to the peace of the world.
It's also stated that Mr. Hagel voted no on a measure requiring separate barracks for men and women during basic military training.
Well, what does he want the military to be? Just party time? You put the men and women together. It's just a cause of trouble. I mean, we all know men and women sometimes think about sex, and you put them in the same barracks, you're going to have problems. The military already has a lot of sexual harassment problems.
Abortions are rife in the military.
Yes, they are, and complaints by the women of harassment of various kinds, rapes and so forth. And if you put them together in the same barracks, it's a recipe for trouble.
He is, I'm speaking of Chuck Hagel now, he is the director of an elitist globalist movement, which you mentioned a moment ago, the Global Zero, which advocates full nuclear disarmament. Now, this philosophy that President Obama agrees with. Now, this is especially dangerous as we think of North Korea and their testing of nuclear missiles, and, of course, then we think about Iran and its potential as well. Anything further on that?
Well, yes, and North Korea has now tested a missile, an intercontinental missile that they claim can reach the United States. And that is really scary because the North Koreans are bad people and they don't like us. And we don't know. Iran, of course, has got plenty of money to keep building, and we know they're trying to build whatever they can that's nuclear. And it's a very dangerous world. We just live in a world where there are bad, evil people who don't like us. And to say that we should reduce our missile force is I think it's crazy. And to appoint a Secretary of Defense who believes in that, who serves on some of these anti-nuke groups. And maybe the most important part of that, I don't know if this is another one of your questions, is our anti-missile defense.
Yeah.
We've got to have a way to shoot down any missiles that come at us. And Ronald Reagan knew that. In fact, his determination to go ahead and build an anti-missile defense was why Reagan was able to win the Cold War. The Russians realized they couldn't compete with that. But the anti-missile defense is a completely defensive system to save American lives, and Obama has reduced that. He's cut back on it, and I think he's picked Hagel because Hagel goes along with all of these pacifist ideas.
Now, getting back to that Plowshares Fund that you talked about moments ago, Hagel serves on the board of directors of the Plowshares Fund, which is a George Soros-funded group that advocates getting rid of our nuclear weapons. He opposes the U.S. development of a missile defense fund, which we just talked about, and promotes global governance. Now, amplify a little bit more about George Soros and his designs on the culture.
George Soros is an extremely wealthy man, and you find his money in most everything that is antagonistic to what you and I and your listeners believe in. And this Plowshares Fund is one of the recipients of his money. He's He's very active in that. And that is an activist group that wants to get rid of U.S. nuclear weapons, and it encourages massive decreases in our defense capabilities and slashing our nuclear force. They want us to have fewer deployed missiles that will go anywhere, and then practically no missile defense. Now, when you look into what these people who have ideas like this are for, they really are pushing toward global government. Mm-hmm. And that's what they want. And, of course, we're seeing the bad results of global government in trade. You know, we got hooked into this World Trade Organization so some foreign bureaucrats can decide our policies, and now Antigua is going to punish us because we won't let them do their internet gambling in the United States, and they're going to levy some big fees on us. That's, you know, to put yourself in a situation where these foreigners who hate us are going to be on some board that will decide U.S. policy is just contrary to the Constitution and contrary to everything we in America believe in.
Now, Mr. Hagel wants to pare down the U.S. military, and he voted for legislation that's detrimental to the U.S. military readiness. And according to his nomination questionnaires, he advocates that the U.S. and the U.S. military have much more involvement with the United Nations. And in his 2008 book, America, Our Next Chapter, Hagel wrote this: the United Nations can play a central and critical role in forging connections. The global challenges of terrorism, proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, hunger, disease, and poverty require multilateral responses and initiatives. The United States should therefore take every opportunity to help strengthen global institutions and alliances, including the UN. No international conflict is simple or easy to deal with, but each requires attention, and the United Nations is the only international organization that can bring the consensus that is indispensable in finding solutions and resolving crises. Unbelievable.
That's a lot of nonsense, and we do not want to submit ourselves to the United Nations. Vic, we in Eagle Forum have one of our members who for years has attended and monitored these UN meetings, and she's been to them all over the world, whether it's Beijing, South Africa, Copenhagen, Brazil, they're everywhere. And well, I tell her she's doing penance for her sins when she goes to these meetings because they're so dreadful to go to and listen to. But what she has discovered is that they are cooking up a plan to levy individual taxes on Americans because it isn't enough that Congress appropriates most of the money they get. And they want to tax international travel, international financial transactions.
UN taxes on whatever comes next.
If they ever do that, that's the day we say goodbye, UN.
We'll be right back in 60 seconds with Phyllis Schlafly. This is Crosstalk on the VCY America Radio Network.
Back to Genesis with Dr. John Morris, creation researcher and scientist at the Institute for Creation Research. Dr. Morris, what exactly are scientists referring to when they say the term the missing link?
Chris, the missing link is usually thought to refer to the missing link between apes and humans. But of course, the evidence for this ape-like ancestor is completely missing, therefore they call it the missing link. Now, we must recognize that missing links are up and down the evolutionary tree. For instance, dogs and cats are thought to have come from a common ancestor, but we have no clue as to the nature of this common ancestor. It, too, is a missing link. By the way, do you know what a missing link is? Neither do I. That's because it's missing. Evolution depends on myriads of missing links, but the fact is they're missing. They're nowhere to be found. There is no evidence that large-scale evolution really occurred. The evidence is all for creation, and it's been that way ever since back in Genesis.
For more on creation, visit our website at icr.org.
And welcome back to Crosstalk. Vic Eliason, your host today. And online with us, no stranger to Crosstalk, is Phyllis Schlafly, the lady who has made so many areas of impact across our country, dealing with a nation adrift here and the important things that we be aware of. And her writings, her voice has been heard, and some 20 books, and ultimately her book, No Higher Power, Obama's War on Religious Freedom, one that you need to access. And Phyllis, where can they get a copy of that?
Well, you could get it at our website, eagleforum.org. You can order it through Amazon or bookstores. It's called No Higher Power, Obama's War on Religious Freedom. And that is another whole subject that your listeners ought to be on to, because he's trying to really change the meaning of the First Amendment. So that you won't have free exercise of religion anymore. You can't say anything about God in any public place. It's just okay if you go inside your church and shut the door, and then it'll be okay to say a prayer.
Phyllis, there have been those that allege that Mr. Hagel has become or been a part of Islam. He's Islamic. What substances are on this thing?
Well, Hagel is the most dangerous appointee for Secretary of Defense we've ever had. He's got so many things wrong with him. He's for getting rid of our nuclear weapons. He's for downplaying our anti-missile defense. He's even for signing on to the Law of the Sea Treaty, which would give some more foreign people the opportunity to make decisions about our policies. Whereas we know that the whole world is better off if we have military superiority. And when we talk about Obama and his attack on religion, he gives a pass to Islam. So we have to be on guard on that all the time.
Well, our good friend Jerry Corsi from over at WND, WorldNet Daily, had an interesting statement here. Of course, he refers to Mr. Hagel, a former Nobel Peace Prize nominee, warns the Senate confirmation of Chuck Hagel as Secretary of Defense would send a message to Iran of weakened U.S. resolve and making it less likely that America's military might would in any way deter Iran's nuclear ambitions.
Well, Jerry Corsi is very reliable, and I would take his words very seriously. That's absolutely true. I think it's so dangerous to have Hagel as Secretary of Defense, who is trying to implement all of the pacifist ideas that Obama has. And let me point out, Vic, there's something that your listeners can do. This isn't just an abstract academic discussion we're having today. They say the vote on Hagel's confirmation is going to be tomorrow in the U.S. Senate. And I hope everybody listening to this program will call your U.S. Senator, both of them, you all have two, and tell them to vote no on Hagel because it isn't safe. We want to save the United States. Do you have a number you can give them?
I sure do. That number for the U.S. Senate is area code 202, and the number is 224-3121. Or you can visit senate.gov, G-O-V. But 202-224-3121. And folks, what Phyllis has just said is no joke. They're going to be confirming tomorrow, and if thousands of people would call this afternoon to the U.S. Senate and issue that statement, no on Chuck Hagel. I was just looking at this also from Jerry. He says, going back to 2001, Hagel has been opposed to U.S. sanctions on Iran and in favor of recognizing the Islamic Republic in order to normalize trade relations. Now, this is. You take a look at the picture here, and this is the man who's going to be defending our country, Secretary of Defense. Folks, what do you think? We're going to open our phone lines if you'd like to talk with Phyllis and share your thoughts. 800-733-9829. The lines are open right now. 800-733-9829. And I hope many of you will call. Please don't take this lightly. What Phyllis just said is something that ought to be your project for the rest of the afternoon. That's right. It's 202-224-3121. And let your voice be heard. If you have never been heard in Washington, and you don't have to worry, give them your name and address. Nobody's going to come knocking at your door. It just validates the fact that you're not calling from some other country. And it's high time that Americans stand up on their hind feet and say, I'm an American, I live right here, and I'm speaking out. It's long overdue, right, Phyllis?
Yes, that's right. I want you to do that, and I hope everybody will call your senator. You can call me another day, but it's so important that you call your senators because we do think the vote on Hagel is coming up tomorrow. His name is Chuck Hagel, and he's supporting Obama on all the efforts to get rid of our nuclear weapons, downplay our anti-missile defense, join up with all of these UN and international organizations where there are some people who decide what our policies should be. And we can't allow that. We have a Constitution, and we want to defend the United States of America.
And, folks, there's one thing you can do as well. When you call, demand a written response. This makes sure that they take your name and address, that you're a real person. You're not just a click on the receiver button and you go away. But you tell them, I'm demanding a written response to my request.
And it's especially helpful if you're calling the senators from your own state. And they all need calls. We want them to get a tsunami of calls this afternoon.
Folks, right now is the time to call. You're listening to the program, but you can cut away and make your call if you come back and let us know how well you were received. That number to call your senators today, this hour, right now, because they're voting tomorrow. And unless we do something and take action, I mean, everyone just sits here like we're riding on a roller coaster, and we can't do anything to control it. But, folks, you're in the driver's seat. 202-224-3121. That's the United States Senate switchboard. And you say, well, I don't know who my senator is. Just tell them who you are and where you live, and they'll hook you up to the right people. Your senators will be most able to hear you. Right now we're going to go to the phone lines, which are ringing from all over Sarasota, Florida. And, Holly, you're on the line with Phyllis Schlafly. Go right ahead.
Yes, Phyllis. I have a question. I don't know. I suppose most people know this, but how does the president get to be the one choosing the Secretary of Defense? Is there certain rules they have to follow?
Yes, he gets to make the appointment of his cabinet officers, but they have to be confirmed by the majority of the senators. And so we have a chance to second-guess him and to say, no, that's an unacceptable person. That's what we want you to do.
Thank you very much, Holly. Jacob in Victoria, Texas. Jacob, you're on the air.
Yes, sir, Mr. Eliason. I was watching C-SPAN a few weeks ago, and they had Chuck Hagel on there, and they were bidding farewell to him and Dick Lugar. I just wanted to mention that they're both Council on Foreign Relations members, and also John Kerry and, who else? Dick Lugar, John Kerry, Joe Biden, and Chuck Hagel. Anyway, there's four of them, 2 Republicans and 2 Democrats, and the thing that really stood out to me, it's really tedious watching C-SPAN, but I just had to watch, one of the things you just got to do, and they were bragging about they're not only responsible for shaping foreign policy, but domestic policy, and these are the same people that brought us the Federal Reserve and the progressive income tax, which is the second plank of the Communist Manifesto, and these people, I just got done listening to Brandon House, and he was talking about a lot of policies they're doing on there, and it's just like Karl Marx said, their goal is to dethrone God and destroy capitalism.
Well, you're absolutely right, and you can add to your list of people you were targeting Obama's job czar, who was the former head of General Electric, and he made some stupid statement the other day. He said, the communist system in China may not be your cup of tea, but it works.
Oh.
And you just don't think of any American appointing somebody who thinks favorable about communism.
This is a big shot in GE? Oh, my.
Yeah, he was the CEO of GE. Yeah. He closed his light bulb plant and moved it to China.
Well,
so he's creating jobs, but they're in China.
I think his light's dimming.
Well,
let's go to Fremont, Ohio right now. Brian, you're on with Phyllis Schlafly.
Hi, Phyllis. How are you today?
Hi, Brian.
I just wanted to say that as far as Chuck Hagel goes for the appointment of Secretary of Defense, kind of seems to me that he has a very hard time identifying who the enemy is, starting with the President of the United States, Barack Obama. And we do not need that type of a person to depend on and to look out for our national safety. We need to get people in there that are that truly have the defense of this country at their the core of their being.
Well, that's the message you need to give to your senators. I already agree with you. You call your 2 senators and tell them just what you said.
New Berlin, Wisconsin. David, you're on the air.
Yes, I just wanted to commend Mrs. Schlafly for what she does. I'm so happy that she's on the side of the Christians, and I just wanted to say I appreciate it, and I will call both of my senators when I'm finished here.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that call. And Chris from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Chris, you're on the air.
Hi, I want to bring up something here. It doesn't really matter who you have in that position, because whoever you put in is going to be doing the biddings of the bankers who, through the military-industrial complex, foment wars across the globe. And it doesn't matter with nuclear weapons or not, because the United States and the other major superpowers have HARP scalar weapons, which are more powerful and less traceable than nuclear weapons anyways.
Okay, Phyllis, your response.
Well, I think it matters a great deal. We know we had to endure Secretary McNamara for years, and he did so much damage. He was able to do so much damage. Everybody thought he was so smart. And yet he was the one who let the Soviet Union build all these threatening weapons against us. And it was only the determination of Ronald Reagan that got us through the Cold War so that we never got hit. But I want to point out one difference between dealing with the communists and dealing with the Islam. When the communists in Russia were in charge, we had a policy called mutual assured destruction, which we called MAD, and it was that they knew that if they dropped a bomb on New York City, we'd hit back and wipe them out, and that was supposed to deter them from doing any bad attack. Mm-hmm. But the Muslims are different. They seem to like to commit suicide. Yeah. I don't think they're going to be deterred by that type of an attitude. And we have to make sure that we have the weapons that are enough to scare them that they never attack in the first place.
Phyllis, our time's come to end on this half hour. We're going to keep the calls coming in here this afternoon.
You can handle them, Vic.
But I just want to thank you on behalf of all of our listeners for the great work you're doing.
And my website is eagleforum.org.
Thanks so much, Phyllis. God bless you.
God bless you, Vic.
Bye-bye now. Phyllis Schlafly, our guest here today, but we're going to continue taking your calls, your responses on this. And are you concerned enough to call Washington today? I mean today, not tomorrow, I want you to pick up your phone even this next half hour. And Phyllis has said this, look, say no to Chuck Hagel. This man apparently is against defense, and he's our secretary to defend us. Figure that one out. We'll be right back.
From Dave Cristiano Films come 2 DVDs which emphasize a high standard of purity. Pamela's Prayer tells the story of Pamela Buckland. All of her friends were dating, but Pamela was not. It seemed unfair that her father insisted on a high standard of purity. That is, it seemed unfair until the day she was married. Due to response to Pamela's Prayer, the second DVD, One Lucky Lady, was made. It's a touching drama that presents a perspective on purity before marriage that is insightful and heartfelt. Through the end of February, VCY America is making available this Purity Pack of DVDs. Any 2 copies are available for a donation of $15. Or if you want multiples to share with others, any 4 copies are available for a donation of $20. Or a combination of 12 DVDs is available for a donation of $42 to VCY America. To obtain your copies, call 1-800-729-9829 and specify how many of each DVD you wish to order. That's 1-800-729-9829.
And welcome back to Crosstalk this afternoon. As we're talking about the new appointee, our president would like to have Mr. Chuck Hagel be the next Secretary of Defense. And as we think about the Secretary of Defense, we need to have a man who is looking out to defend us as a nation, defend our cause, defend our Constitution, everything that we stand for and that we live for here in our nation. But if this man is willing to give deference to Islam, if he's willing to disarm our country and remove our nuclear capabilities and all of the things, and I went over those points earlier, but we'll touch on them again, he would be our first anti-military Secretary of Defense. He has consistently declared that he believes in a pared-down Pentagon. He has voted on a no on a measure requiring separate barracks for men and women during basic training. He is the director of an elitist globalistic movement called Global Zero, which advocates full-scale nuclear disarmament. Mr. Hagel serves on the board of the Plowshares Fund, a George Soros fund developed. It is a group that advocates getting rid of our nuclear weapons and opposes U.S. development of an anti-missile system. Hagel believes that a U.S. missile defense system only would be deployed with the cooperation of Russia. He does not consider such cooperation from Russia as important when it comes to nuclear weapons and reducing them. He's called for a sharply reduced number of U.S. nuclear weapons, possibly even equivalent cuts by Russia. And, of course, he wants to pare down the U.S. military, and he is a strong supporter of the Law of the Seas Treaty, which, of course, is United Nations related. Well, you've got the story, and how much do you have to know before it motivates you to pick up your phone and call Washington? And you have the opportunity today, and you call your senators, because the senators are going to be meeting tomorrow, and that is to approve. That's right, to approve Mr. Hagel or to not approve Mr. Hagel. And so the question is, what are you going to do about it? And there's something you can do about it, and that's that phone that's sitting over there. And if you can get up the courage to just walk over and dial 202-224-3121. That's 202-224-3121. They'll answer the phone, the U.S. Senate or the Capitol switchboard, and simply say, I want to talk to my senator's office. And you tell them who you are and where you live, and they will connect you with your senators. And it's time for you to tell them what you think. And as Phyllis said, her message to them would be vote no on Chuck Hagel. That's what Phyllis said. Well, it's up to you what you want to say. But the opportunity to get on the phone to make a difference. And right now our phone lines are buzzing from all of you. Our phone number for your comments this afternoon are 800-733-9829. We're going to go to Illinois and talk with Dorothy. And Dorothy, you're on the air.
Yes, I called that number already, and I answered with leave a message. And I told them everything that you said to say, and that if that Chuck Hagel was to be in there, we wouldn't have an America left. He's all for the Muslims and for the United Nations being a member, an active member, which would take away our Constitution.
So I assume that your message was very clear and very plain. Vote no on Chuck Hagel.
Yes, I did, and I said to vote no. He's the last person in the world we want in there.
Okay.
And I thought I'd let you know that. And then they said, well, just leave your message. And I said everything that you just got through telling the people to say. I said it very emphatically.
And I hope, Dorothy, that it will not just be a suggestion from Phyllis or me on a personal level, but that this would be the true sentiment of Americans listening across this network, as you can conclude what the problem is. And obviously, if tomorrow they're going to vote for him unless they hear from the people of America. And your call, Dorothy, was greatly appreciated. I thank you so much for calling.
Don't hang them up on me yet. I'm just wondering whether or not they'll give them the message knowing that they're going to vote tomorrow. They might just not give it to them.
No, ma'am. If you call the office, there is an obligation that you give them the message. And just simply, did you ask for them to return or to respond in writing?
Yes.
That's good, because that way they had to take your name and address.
Well, I thought they might lie and just say,
Yeah.
you know.
Let's hope not.
Well, let's pray not.
Okay, thank you, Dorothy. Appreciate that very much. Moving right along here. Kathy in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. Our phone number, 800-733-9829. Kathy.
Hi, Vic. Thank you so much for the information about Chuck Hagel on your program today. That I didn't realize all of those things that he was standing for and or against, as the case may be. But anyway, I did call both of our senators here in Wisconsin.
Great.
I called Senator Johnson's office. They were very, very kind, and she said Senator Johnson is opposed to Chuck Hagel, and he will be voting no. Mm-hmm. When I called Senator Baldwin's office, I got pretty much a generic response. We'll pass the message along to the senator, and I did ask for a written response from them. So just wanted to let you know, and I just really appreciate you and all the work that you are doing in your program, and God bless you, and that's about all I have to say.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Kathy. Appreciate that very much. We're going to move right on. Our phone number right now is 800-733-9829, and we'll see some more lines flashing here. Let's go right now to Lat in Racine, Wisconsin. Lat, you're on the air.
Yeah, hi, Vic. I just want to let your callers know that this Chuck Hagel, he is a strong supporter of the UN Agenda 21, and he is a supporter of destroying the Constitution, and we just have to call our senators and let them know whether they vote him in or not. But if we don't let him know, and we know that he is the sinful desires of his heart, we are also sinful if we don't call him and let speak the truth for the Lord Jesus.
Thank you, Lat. Appreciate the call. Folks, do you realize that the impact of this little broadcast, and I kid you not, we know that there are 95 radio stations that are broadcasting this program today. 95. And if 100 people, and some of these are very large stations that cover hundreds of thousands of people, but if there was just 100 people listening to each station that will take the challenge to pick up their phone and call the Senate, do you realize that before 5 p.m. Central Time, they could receive up to 9,500 phone calls just from this little old crosstalk program? I kid you not. But it's up to you. If you just walk over to your phone and dial that number and let them know what you think about this situation with Chuck Hagel, you've heard the story. The rest is up to you. But, folks, if we don't do something about it, there are two kinds of sins. One is sins of commission, meaning the sins we commit. And then there are sins of omission. Those are the ones that we should do something and don't. And today, don't let this be a sin of omission, where we should be calling and haven't done so. Right now, we're going to Waukesha and talk with Judy. Judy, you're on the air.
Good afternoon. I wanted to say two things real quickly. Number one, if the people would know, be reminded that it's an hour later in the East Coast.
Get their call in right away.
Yeah, it's 3:40 over there. And the other thing is that I've been hung up on already 3 or 4 times. And they just, one put me on hold, and then they just didn't come back, and then they...
Okay, then let me give you, they're being overloaded at this point then. Judy, listen to me carefully. Write this number down then as an alternative. 202-225-3121. Same number.
Okay.
You have 202-224-3121, but there's an alternative number, 202-225-31, and ask for the Senate.
Very good.
Okay, thank you. Be sure to do so right quickly as you can. Thanks, Judy. Let's go right now to Diana in New Lisbon, Wisconsin. Diana, you're on the air.
Hi. I also called those numbers, and when I could not get through, I was on one for 10 minutes listening to music, and then I got a busy signal, and then I just hung up. So then I called the other senator's office. I tried calling Ron Johnson, and the number that I had went through, but then it was busy, and I couldn't get through on that one. So I finally got discouraged trying to call them, so I called Scott Walker's office, and the guy that answered, his name was Cody, he said that he had another number for the White House, or for the Capitol switchboard, and it was 1-202-456-1414.
One more time again?
1-202-456-1414.
I believe that's the White House, ma'am.
Okay.
1414 is the White House. We're trying to reach the Capitol.
Okay, well, we couldn't get through on that other number.
Well, probably there's a natural phenomenon happening here at this moment, because I believe that there are literally thousands of people trying to call as a result of what's happening just with our little network here.
Okay.
Can you imagine if 9,000 people are on the phone right now trying to get through that switchboard? So if you didn't get through right away, call back in 10 minutes.
Okay, well, I'll keep on calling because I tried calling. As soon as you guys came on the air, I tried calling. And
hang on a second. We're getting a message right here. Yeah, the number that was given, that 1414 number, is the White House. Has nothing to do with Congress or Senate.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right.
Okay, moving right along, let's go to Jamie in Glendale, Wisconsin. And Jamie, you're on the air.
Hi, I'm thrilled to hear you rallying the troops because, Vic, you and I almost never agree, but on this one, completely in agreement. 2 points. One, calling, at least for Wisconsinites, calling Ron Johnson is a total waste of time because if he lived to be 1,000 years old, he would never vote for Hagel.
Oh, Jamie, let me just say that is your opinion. You're welcome to it. But as people who are writing or calling, rather, there will be a call slip generated. And if there are 1,000 call slips on his desk, at least he'll understand the sentiments of others. So to discourage people to do what I'm asking them to do, maybe where we disagree. And I thank you so much. Mobile, Alabama, let's talk to Gwen. You're on the air.
Yes, sir. I just called the Capitol, got a hold of both of my senators. Senator Sessions is not voting for Hagel, but Senator Shelby is. So people of Alabama, call him up there and give him the dickens.
Okay. Thank you, Gwen.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Okay,
that.
bye-bye.
From Mobile, Alabama, let's go to Holman, Wisconsin, and talk with Rudy. And Rudy, you're on the air. Rudy, go ahead.
Hello, Vic. Say, I'm in the La Crosse area. I did call the number that you had given. The second time I called it, I got right through. I did get the voice message to Tammy Baldwin, and I left a message to not vote for Mr. Hagel for the reasons that I believe in as well as you believe in. And I really appreciate the work you guys put in, and been listening to you for over 20 years. So thank you very much for giving that phone number, and thanks for the opportunity to make the call.
Thank you, Rudy. Appreciate that call. Coming up here on a break very shortly in about a minute, let's catch Greg in Salina, Kansas. And Greg, you're on the air. Hello.
Hi. Yes. Am I on?
You're on the air. Go ahead.
Okay. With the Chuck Hagel and everything that's going on, it just seems to me like we're prolonging the inevitable. If we believe in what God's plan is, I mean, all of this stuff is foretold. And, I mean, it is a scary time for everything that's going on. But if we trust that God's in control, it's going to happen. Whether
are you saying,
Hagel or somebody else.
Greg, are you saying that people should not bother to operate in the frame of a government that God provided for us?
Not at all. I'm just saying it clearly states in the Bible how things are laid out.
Well, I think it's our responsibility to respond in that we have been given representative government, Greg. But we're at a break, so I'm sorry. I don't mean to lose you, but we're up against a hard break, and I appreciate your call.
For the Worldview Weekend Minute, I'm Brandon House. Our website is worldviewweekend.com. There are 6 main worldviews that rule the world. Now, there are more than 6 worldviews, but there are 6 main worldviews that rule the world. One of those is Islam. And did you know that worldview is becoming very heated here in America? Did you know that there are numerous reports, including the WorldTribune.com reporting, that Obama is covertly recruiting Muslims as Democrats? We have reports from people like U.S. Congressman Louis Gohmert, 1st District of Texas, stating that the administration appears to be complicit in supporting the designated terrorist organization Hamas. We have another report from Accuracy in Media titled "The Enemy is Inside the Wire," talking about how we now have radical Muslims connected to Hamas and Islamic Society of North America inside the Department of Homeland Security and other major organizations. There is a worldview war going on in America.
And welcome back to Crosstalk. Just a word to folks who may be frustrated because of the overload of the telephone system. May I say this? If you have a computer, simply go to your browser and type in senate.gov, senate.gov. Then when it comes up, you click on senators, and you can find very quickly the direct numbers of your two senators. And so it's available if you just take the time to do this. Go to your computer, senate.gov, and then click on senators, and you'll find very quickly the direct number to your senators. Now, I want to share this with those who, and I firmly believe in the providence of God and his control. But I also believe in the responsibility of God's children to do what they're told and to function, and God, through our conscience, can make us aware of what is wrong and what is right. That's right. Discernment comes as a gift from God. And if you are saying, well, you're in the battle, just don't worry about going to battle because the Lord will take care of it, no need to face the enemy. Well, what would have happened in the Battle of Jericho if all the people were lined up? And, of course, if you recall correctly, there were some very specific directions. And one of the directions was that at a given point, well, first it was that the choirs sing and that they play musical instruments. Specifically, there were responsibilities if they were going to see victory. And then finally, there came the decree, and when they were to shout. And the shouting was the expression of these people of God. And when they shouted, the walls came tumbling down. Now, if they hadn't shouted, you suppose the walls would have come down? I don't think so. That was part of God's command. Well, we have enjoyed for hundreds of years now representative government. The Bible in Ezekiel chapter 33 talks about the warning of the watchman on the wall. We see the wicked approaching and the hazards of not warning people. And when someone warns someone, it brings about the reaction of running or providing security. And so if we can, and many times whenever we talk about things like, well, don't get excited, just leave it in God's hands, and I'm all in favor of God's hands, don't get me wrong. But I know that God is an active God, and he's used real live people, even like a little shepherd boy named David, to kill a giant. And he's used 300 men of Gideon's army to quell the masses. But these are people who had learned to obey, and even when it came to how they drank water, made a difference. Just thought I'd share that as we trust God to guide us in this battle. Quickly, we're going to go to James in Alabama. And James, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Hello?
Yes, James, you're on the air.
Yes, sir. I just want to call and let you know, first of all, thank you for bringing this to our attention. And I'm one of these people who writes his congressmen and his senators all the time complaining about things I feel I have the right to complain about. I have the direct phone numbers to my senators and congressman's office. I think people should write their senators and their congressmen about anything they disagree with or even something they agree with them on.
That's right.
But we have the obligation as citizens of these United States to state our opinion and tell them what we think's right.
God bless you, James. I hope you'll call this afternoon and make your voice heard. Jeanette in Tennessee, you're on the air.
Yes, sir. You know, I think sometimes we forget that we're really fighting a spiritual battle, and we can do everything that we can try to do, and we know God is on our side. But I really, truly believe that America deserves judgment, wicked judgment, because this country has just fallen so low, and the enemy is going to come from within, and in the end, we know we win. But I think that we're going to have to go through some very, very tough times.
Jeanette, somebody put it this way: that God is shaking the tree, and the true fruit will become identified.
Because, you know, as Americans, we've had everything so good for so long, we don't even realize how good we have it. We just take so much for granted. And, you know, the battle is the Lord's.
The main thing
I agree
is
that we can try to fight back any way we can, but I think the government's hands are tied, and there's evil forces behind this movement.
Well, one of the biggest weapons, too, Jeanette, and I believe in God's ability to bring victory. I believe He's in His ability to bring chastisement as well. But one of the biggest tools that the devil has had over the years has been apathy. People who have not even exercised the rights that God has provided them and have been careless and foolish, and their moral values are down the tubes. And it's long overdue that people renew their understanding, first of all, by repenting of sin, confessing your sin before a holy God, and then, as repentance, to draw near to God and to be responsive as a true believer should be. I thank you very much for that call. And at this point in time, I believe we are just a shade. We've got about 1 minute left. And Big Lake, Minnesota, Tracy, you're on the air.
In my call, I just wanted to comment on the gentleman who was suggesting that we not do anything. Mm-hmm. God does have control, but He also has told us in the Bible not to sit idle. Mm-hmm. And where would we be if Jesus Himself, going to the cross to shed His blood, didn't go because He thought God was under control, and He Himself prayed and asked God, if You can take this cup from me, so be it. Yeah. He acted, and we are to act. God does have control, but He doesn't want us to sit idle.
Tracy, I want to thank you for your call. You're the last one in today. Where's Big Lake, Minnesota?
It's between St. Cloud and it's sort of a suburb of the Twin Cities.
You must be listening on the Pensacola Rejoice Network.
Yes, I am.
Oh, very good. They are a wonderful ministry there. Well, God bless you. Thank you so much, Tracy. And I want to thank everybody else for joining us today. The program and Phyllis Schlafly certainly got things started. And folks, call. Pick up your phone and call. Let your voice be heard. Let the Senate know. Tomorrow they're meeting to make a decision can literally change the profile of our country much more severely than you would ever believe. Thanks for joining us on Crosstalk.
Listening to Crosstalk via satellite and the internet from VCY America. Views expressed may or may not be those of this station. For a CD of today's program, send a donation of $6 or more to VCY Tape Ministry, 3434 West Kilbourne Avenue, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53208, or download by RSS or podcast from crosstalkamerica.com. And join us again for Crosstalk.